Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session here on the technology stage. We're here to talk about from good idea to application, how to apply responsive strategies in Virtuous. I'm so excited to talk about this. If you don't know who I am, my name is Scott Richards. I am the Director of Training and Education here at Virtuous. And now you can see a photo of me in my snazzy, shiny jacket, which is very important because that's part of my brand. But here, I'm excited to be talking about how to apply responsive fundraising in Virtuous, because if you're like me, you've probably been to a few different conferences just like this one. You hear a lot of great ideas, and we've had some awesome speakers over the last couple of days. And then you get back to your office after it's all over, and you kind of come down off that high, and you sit down and you go, man, I don't have the first clue how to implement anything that I just heard about over the last couple of days. So what I want to do is really talk about taking the philosophy of responsive fundraising and make it something practical that you can do if you're using Virtuous CRM. So before we get into that, it is important for us to review the responsive framework. So we are all talking about these same key 4 elements of responsive. So remember, we talk about responsive fundraising. We talk about how you have to listen. You have to connect, then you can suggest, and then of course the final phase of this is that you learn. And this is a cycle, so you will repeat this cycle over and over again. Now you hear those 4 words, listen, connect, suggest, and learn, and they sound great, but again, well, how do I do those things? Now the thing to keep in mind with the responsive framework is really, when you look at it, it's just like having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, maybe that you just met at a real conference, right? That you're in person. You sit down at a table and you start to have a chat. It's the same things you would do in that instance. You need to listen to the person that you're talking to, right? Make a connection with them. You might make a suggestion. Hey, you should go check out this speaker. I think they're really great, right? And then you can learn, because they might say, ooh, I've heard them speak before. I actually have some great ideas from them, and I've used them before. Oh my gosh, that's great. Let me listen to your ideas, and then repeat that cycle. So if you think about responsive fundraising as just having a continuous conversation with your donors and with your supporters, you'll be doing that over multiple channels, and you'll be doing it through various tools, but it's the same thing, the same principle. Then it's a little bit easier to do. Okay. Oh my gosh, I just saw the chat in there too. Thank you, Daphne. I'm so glad to hear that someone thinks I'm a legend. So we want to start on the responsive framework, of course, by talking about listening. Okay, there's a great quote here from the father of listening, someone who teaches listening theory. The most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. And the best way to understand people is to listen to them. It's the same thing when we're doing our fundraising. Okay. Now, in terms of listening to your donors, there's a lot of information that people are already collecting. And these are all different ways that you can listen to your donors, right? The first thing is to look at their giving history. What have they given to you? How much? How often? How frequently? What types of gifts do they give? What types of projects do they support? What types of appeals do they tend to respond to? All of those things tell you something about your donors. You can also look at their volunteer history. When do they actually come and put in the time and the effort to contribute to your programming in a real tangible way? Not just writing a check, but they come on down and roll up their sleeves and they pack meal kits for the hungry. When are they doing those sorts of things? And what is it that mobilizes them to do those things? What do they respond to? Of course, there are also external sources, things like data appends, right? Bringing in external wealth data and other indicators so that we know who it is that we can approach for what size gift or what type of gift. Those are all different ways that you can listen. And then there's also the ability to ask questions. And that's where we get into this idea of having a conversation, right? So if you're having a conversation, you don't just spew information at somebody, right? You're going to ask them questions. How are you? How old are your kids? All those sorts of things, and you're going to do the same thing when it comes to fundraising. Now, I think that a lot of organizations do a pretty good job at collecting some of this data. We don't always listen to it, though. Right? Listening means that I'm going to allow this to change how I communicate with these donors. I'm going to put it into practice. That's a different story, right? We all keep track of giving history so we can send tax receipts, but are we letting that inform our interactions with donors going forward? That's the bigger question. Now, when it comes to asking questions, of course, there's an easy way to do that, and that is you can use surveys as a way to ask people questions, right? You can look at a really simple welcome survey flow. If someone submits a form on your website, they subscribe to your email newsletter, fantastic. Now I want to send them an automated email that links to a survey to ask them more about what they're passionate about and what makes them tick, so I know what kinds of stories to tell them. Right? This is one simple way that you can do that, and you can ask questions. And so, of course, the question now is, but how do I do that in Virtuous? So we're going to take a look at how you can do that in Virtuous. So I'm going to slide on over here to Virtuous CRM. Hey, look at that. And we're going to go ahead and work through a basic sort of workflow to be able to do this. Okay? Now, in order to do this, you'd have to have a Virtuous form, right, embedded on your website. An easy way that folks could sign up, again, to receive emails or sign up for your newsletter, something along those lines. Okay? Then we're going to go in here and we're going to build a really simple workflow. Now again, you can get a little fancier with this. You can add all sorts of complexity. We're going to keep it simple because I have a ticking clock in front of me and I only have so much time today. But we're going to go ahead and create a workflow, and we're going to create an individual workflow. The key to remember when it comes to form submissions in Virtuous is those are all individual-based activities. A household does not submit a form, a person from that household does. So whenever I'm dealing with form submissions and things like that, I know that I'm dealing with individuals and not contacts. This is probably one of the hardest parts about building a workflow, is to figure out what kind of workflow you want to build. So if I'm doing something like this based on web activity, right, form submission activity, that's going to be an individual workflow. We can go ahead and give this a name. We're going to call this something really creative here, because I'm really feeling, oh my gosh, I can't even type. There we go. That's a hazard of my, my occupation here. Occupational hazard, that's the phrase I'm looking for. So we're going to let this run 7 days a week. Now we also have a choice here. Do we have this run against everybody in the database? And I'm going to say no here. We're going to shoot to do this for new folks. So new people coming in who submit that subscription form. We want to have this be the beginning of their experience. So I'm going to say, hey, look, we're going to start from the beginning of this month, and anybody that does this from the start of this month on, go ahead and put them through this workflow. That way I'm doing this for new people. If you've been in my database for years, we're going to have a different process for you. Okay? We're not going to allow re-enrollment because, again, this is sort of a welcome process, so we're only going to do this once. Now we need to add a step to our workflow. We're going to go ahead and say, hey, this is a form submission. There we go. And we're going to use a saved query that I happen to have already built just for this purpose. RNS survey workflow. Now that query in and of itself is actually a nested query. Remember, when you are dealing with workflows and automation, you can trigger a contact workflow with a contact query. You can trigger an individual workflow with an individual query. Now, in order to get the data we needed, though, we had to build a form submission query so that we could specifically identify folks who have submitted our newsletter sign-up form. And then from there, we nested that into an individual query, which is the query that I'm selecting here. Okay? So for something like this, we know that we can't use a filter because the data we want lives in another query. It's attached to another object, attached to forms in this case. So we knew we had to use a query, and we actually had to use a nested query in order to make that happen. But here we can go ahead and save that. And now we've got our step, and we need to add in an action. And it's really easy, right? We had a really simple workflow laid out. Someone's going to submit that form. We're going to send them an email, and that's going to link them to a different sort of survey form where we ask them some more information about what makes them tick. So here we're going to go ahead and send an email, and we've got our RNS survey email already ready to go, and we're going to send that out. And that email has a link embedded in it that will drive someone to a form on our site that will ask them more information. Now that form happens to be right over here. Here's the RNS survey form. Look at that, like we had it ready to go. And if we take a look at that form, let's go ahead and edit it. Now this is a basic lead form right now. Okay, so it's just a lead form. We're not doing any GIF processing or anything like that, just a lead form. We just want someone to be able to submit a form to us. And all it's asking for right now is who are you? What's your name? What's your email address? But we need to get our survey in here. Now, in order to do a survey, one of the best tools for doing that is going to be a custom collection. And if we scroll down here on the left, we've got all sorts of fields we can add in. At the bottom here, I've got this individual custom collection field for survey data. And we'll just drop that in. Now, the reason why I like to use custom collections for surveys is because with a custom collection, you can continue to track responses over time. So if this is a survey you're going to use in a couple different places, or you're going to have a couple of similar types of forms that will ask these questions, someone can submit that multiple times and you'll track all of those responses. You can even see how they have changed over time. Maybe at the beginning they weren't very interested in volunteering for your organization, but after they've gotten a little closer to the mission, they are more interested in becoming a volunteer as well. That's fantastic. That's what we want to see. So here, we're just going to go ahead and look at a quick preview. And when we do, you can see we've got our form here with our name and our email address, and then that custom collection actually creates this big block right in the form where we're asking our questions. So we've got a big paragraph field here to ask them about what kind of change they want to see in the world, right? And how can we work together to affect that change? And then we've got a couple of multi-select lists. What are you interested in? I'm interested in tutoring. Maybe I'm also interested in the after-school program. I prefer to be contacted by text or by email. Please don't ever call me. Maybe, yes, I'm interested in volunteering. And oh my goodness, I would love to come tour the new facility. Fantastic. A couple of simple questions, but then when we collect this information, that tells us something about our supporter, and we can use that to inform our future interactions. That's a real critical part of this, right? Again, listening is different from just collecting and harvesting data. If I'm just hoarding data, that's one thing, but I'm not putting it into play. I'm not actually using it to make decisions or to inform my strategy. So the key is when I collect all this information, I want to make sure that I'm using that to inform the next step, to inform how I connect with them. They've told me how they want to be contacted, and to even inform what I'm going to suggest. If they've told me, yes, I'm interested in volunteering and I prefer to be contacted by email, well then, if I'm listening to them, I'm going to connect with them via email and I'm going to suggest that they join our next volunteer opportunity, packing meal kits. Or in this case, they're interested in after school, so coming to learn about being an after school tutor. Right? That's the real key when we talk about listening. Okay. Now, with custom collections, of course, you can create them just like custom fields. We happen to have skipped a few steps here. It's a little bit of a cooking show sort of moment. We had to have all of our ingredients already pre-measured out and ready to go. But again, custom collections are a fantastic tool for collecting this survey information. If you're a Virtuous admin, you'll create custom collections the same place you create your custom fields. They work very similarly in terms of the creation and the setup, but then from there, they behave a little differently. Again, they can track multiple responses over time. Okay? All right, if there are questions about that, you guys can certainly feel free to send them in. I want to make sure that we allow time to look at a couple of other strategies here. This is probably one of the biggest ones. This involves the most moving parts and tools here. We've looked at forms, we've looked at workflows, we're looking at custom collections, right? Queries. There's a lot going into this. So there is a lot of setup to do. But the nice thing is with all of this, right, they're set up at the front, at the start. But then once this is up and running, I don't have to come check in on it every day. Right? It's not something manual that I have to do every day. I don't have to go into my database, pull a report, see who submitted that form, take that list, go load it up into something else, send them out an email and all that stuff. That's going to happen on its own every single day. I just have to do the setup at the beginning to make sure I've got the custom collections and the forms and the emails and the workflows queued up and ready to roll. A little bit different. Okay. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to go back to the Virtuous dashboard just so that we're ready to slide over here. But we're going to keep taking a look at the next phase of responsive. Right? So again, here's our responsive framework, right? We talked about listening and different ways to listen. So of course, the next thing to talk about is connecting, right? The next part of that natural conversation you're going to have with folks. So connection, of course, we have to have a smart quote. I love smart quotes. And I love this definition, right, of connection. I really do. And I think it really speaks to the work that all of you are doing, right? Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. Right? That's what we want to make happen. That's what a good conversation feels like. Someone's not just talking at you, right? They see you, they hear you, that you have value to them. Someone who makes you feel important in that moment is someone that you really enjoy talking to. A nonprofit who makes their supporters feel seen and heard and valued is a nonprofit that they want to continue to support and continue to be involved with in good times and in bad. Those are the lasting connections that we want to be able to build. Okay? So, in terms of connecting, there are a couple different ways that you can connect in Virtuous. Just like there are different ways to connect with your friends. I've got some friends that I love to call on the phone. I've got some friends that I have text conversations with that have been going on for years, right? Everybody's got friends and you know the ways to connect with them. Your donors are no different. Again, it's the same thing. We're just having that continuous conversation. So what are some ways that you can connect with some of your supporters? Well, obviously you can send them out marketing emails. Now those marketing emails, again, should be informed by the data that you're listening to about them. So they shouldn't just be spray and pray. Here's a big message we're going to send to everybody. It's the same for everybody in the database, right? I want to make sure that that's a little bit more personalized. Now, we also have the ability for you to send SMS, right? SMS messages, a little bit like saying ATM machine, a little redundant, but hey, what are you going to do? But you can send text messages to your supporters directly from Virtuous. And remember, you can do that in an automated fashion from a workflow. You can do that as a mass text that you send out in one big messaging blast, either way. We also have letters on demand. So if you want to have something more tangible that shows up in someone's hands automatically, you can use letters on demand to be able to do that. And one of the tools that I think gets overlooked, but that's really powerful, is the personalized email template. And personalized email templates, that's what I want to look at here in Virtuous. So personalized email templates can be used in automation tasks, right? They can, oh, there we go. They can be used from a contact record. And the idea with a personalized email template is it is a plain text template that you can have built ready to go. And when someone goes to send it, it'll open in their email program, whether it's Gmail or Outlook or whatever it is. All the text will be in there, but then you can customize it further. So you want to talk about really listening and then personalizing communication. A personalized email template is a great way to do that. Now, if you're going to manage personalized email templates for your team, so if you're an admin, you're going to find those in settings. You're going to go in here to data management. And from there, we'll see our personalized email templates right down here. And we can see I've got a few of them in here already. We can go up here to actions. We can create a new one. And to create a personalized email template, you do have to give that a name. Let's call this RNS template because I'm feeling real creative today. You can put in a subject line here. And for your subject line, you'll see you have a drop-down list of merge tags. So if you want that subject line to include someone's first name, if I want to say, hey, Scott, I like your snazzy jacket, I can go ahead and do that right there in that subject line, right? Or I can say, hi. I'll just pick one of these. So let's say first name. Thanks for attending RNS, right? And then the body of my email, I can have a hi. And again, same thing. You've got all these merge tags available. So hi, first name, hi, Scott. So great to see you at RNS. Whoops. Which session was your favorite? Obviously, it's this one, right? So we can type all that in there. We can put in some of the other merge tags. That's great. And then we can go ahead and save that. It'll be a nice, simple template we can use here. Now, once I've built that out, then if I go to a contact record in here, so we can go to our friends, the McSamples, Harry and Sally. And let's say I see Harry up here and I think, okay, Harry is someone I want to follow up with. If I click on his email address, right from here, I can say, okay, I'm going to send him a personalized email. And that'll open this little interactive window here. I can choose which template I want to send him. I want to send him this RNS template. It'll show me what the RNS template looks like. And then if I hit compose email, that actually, wrong browser. But that'll actually open my email usually. And that will show that email in my case, Gmail. I can personalize that note and I can send it off to somebody. So a really nice, easy way to send a more personal touch to somebody and connect with them. It's another layer on top of some of the automated emails. Now again, these can be tied to a workflow. So you can have a workflow task that includes sending a personalized email template. And when someone clicks on that to complete that task, that personalized email template, just like we're looking at here, will pop open and they'll be prompted to go ahead and send that. So if you want to have some kind of a follow-up, if you want to have a message that goes out from your major gift officers when folks are assigned to them, this is a great tool to use to do that. You can use automation to drive those behaviors, but they can still send a more personalized note, but have some rails to run on. They don't have to just make up their own note from scratch. They can just plug in a couple of details based on what they know about that particular donor. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the time. We've got so much to look at. Let's keep on trucking through here, because we've got a couple more strategies to look at. So getting back to our framework, we've talked about listening, we've talked about connecting. Now we want to make a suggestion, right? We want to suggest. And of course, for this, I had to include a GIF from one of the greatest shows, just because it's fun. But once a suggestion has entered the general atmosphere of human thought, it is very difficult to neutralize it. I think that's a great thought to keep in mind. Hey, once you've put that suggestion out there, right, it's there, it doesn't go away. So even if you make that suggestion today that someone should become a recurring donor, that they should volunteer, right, that's going to stay in their mind. As long as you keep that conversation alive, that suggestion's going to stay active for them. Maybe it won't come through in a gift today. Maybe it's going to happen a couple months from now or a year from now. But that suggestion that you plant today can still bear fruit somewhere further down the line. So how can we make suggestions in Virtuous? Let's look at a couple of ways that you can make suggestions. So of course, you can send someone an invitation to come join you at an event, whether you're using ticketed events in Virtuous or if you're using just a free event. Either way, you can invite them to attend. You can invite them to join you at your next volunteer opportunity. And of course, you can do that very simply by sending a marketing email through Virtuous. Maybe you're using Vomo to track and mobilize your volunteers. Either way, getting them involved and engaged, it's a great way to do that. Of course, you can ask them for a gift. Why not? I want to make a major gift ask. I'd like you to give $50,000 because that's the best way I can suggest that you can help make the change you want to see in the world, right? And one of the really fun ways is you can use smart arrays. Okay, smart arrays are one of my favorite tools to use because with a smart giving array, again, based on what we've been listening to from our donors, their giving history, their gift amounts and things like that, I can make the right suggestion for somebody based on what I know about them when they land on my giving form, on my giving page. Now, this requires using a couple of different tools. To use a smart array, you do have to be using the responsive listener in Virtuous. That code has to be active on your web page. That way, when someone visits your web page and they do see that giving form, Virtuous knows who they are, and they do know their giving history. We know what we've been listening to from them, and we can make the right suggestion. And then, of course, you're using a Virtuous giving form. And so by combining those two things with a smart array, then when someone lands on my web page, we can see here on the one side, someone who is brand new, maybe they've never given before, right? We've got their experience when they come to give. And then another donor who has given larger gift amounts in the past comes to the web page. They're going to see an entirely different gift array there they're seeing higher amounts because, again, Virtuous knows more about them and knows more about their giving history. So we can suggest the right gift amount for everybody and do it dynamically. Think about how much time this could save on something like segmenting emails. Instead of me having to hard code and ask about into my email and figure out the right ask and target all of that, I can ask someone to give today, give them a link to my website. And everybody who lands on the website is going to be prompted to give the right gift amount based on what we know about them. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how you can use these in Virtuous. Now again, this does require having the responsive listener set up on your website. You're going to need to do that in order to know who somebody is when they land on your web page, so you can suggest the right gift amount for them. Now, once you've done that, then you can create a smart gift array. Now, there's a couple places to create gift arrays in Virtuous. You can do it when you're creating a giving form, or you can do it from the settings for your forms. So here, we're going to go ahead and go into Forms. And from the Forms page, we can go up here to Form Settings. And on Form Settings, we're going to see all these different arrays here. All right, and we're going to create a new one. Now, when I create a gift array, and let's call this one our RNS giving array, you'll see that it starts out with sort of just a basic default gift array. So here's a couple of values. And if you want to use those values, great. We've already got that built in for you. If you want to modify those because you've got some specific gift amounts you're looking for, you can change all of those. And you're going to see that it says this is for your unknown donor here. Okay, so that's, hey, we don't know who you are. You've never been on our website before. We don't know enough about you. Again, we haven't been able to listen to any signals from you. Here's what we're going to ask you for. Then, down here, you'll see, hey, we have this option to use a custom gift array if we know who the donor is. And based on that custom gift array here, or that gift array, we can choose if we want to base that on the Virtuous suggested gift amount or their average gift amount. Hey, well, what's the average size of gift this donor tends to give? And then based on average gift amount, you'll see this smart array is expressed as a multiplier. So, hey, if their average gift amount is $50, we want to start by asking them for $50. Right? And then we want to go from there. So we want that to be the low end because, of course, we would like to have them give more if possible. Then, if you're not sure what this gift array is going to do, well, what's going to happen when I turn this thing on? Well, down here at the bottom, you have the option to preview your gift array. So you can come in here and say, hey, if someone's average gift amount is $50, what are they going to see? And here are the amounts that that donor would see. They would start at $50, then $70, $80, $100, and of course there's other if they want to be able to give more. So you can play around with this. Now there's a lot built in behind the scenes here to make sure that these ask amounts do make sense, right? So even though some of these multipliers, you might end up with an ask amount like $73.28, no one's going to put that on a giving form. So we'll round up and we'll round down as needed to make sure that that gift array still makes sense for your donor. We'll also cap it at a certain level. So if someone has been a real major donor, they've been giving six-figure gifts for years, they're not going to come to a giving form and have it ask for them to give $100,000 on the giving form. Okay, so there's a lot of intelligence built into those. You can see some of that documented in our Help Center in terms of what that looks like. But those smart arrays, again, they're a great way to just make sure that every donor's experience is tailored based on what you've been listening to from them and what you know about them, and to make sure you're making the right suggestion for everybody. That really gets to the heart of what we talk about with responsive fundraising, right? I want everything to be personalized, but I also want it to happen at scale. I can't personally call every donor and ask them for the right gift amount. I need to use the right tools to make sure that that experience happens regardless of what I happen to do. So once I have this set up, they're going to have that experience. They're going to get asked for the right gift amount regardless. I don't have to go in and set that up every single time. Okay. So let's get back there and we'll take a look at the next sort of step of the process. We've talked about listening. We've talked about how you can connect with donors. We've talked about A couple ways you can make suggestions. So of course the last part is now I need to learn. And when we talk about learning in the responsive framework, again, we're talking about learning from each interaction, right? Hey, I heard them say X, so I reached out to them and I suggested Y, and how was that received? So, okay, well, what should I do next based on what happened in that last interaction? We want to learn from each of those and use that to deepen our connection with our supporters over time. Again, the same way as you learn something about somebody in a conversation, right? That's going to inform maybe the next question you ask them, the next thing you talk to them about. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were also into bonsai trees. So am I. Let's talk about that for 20 minutes because I just learned that about you, and that's going to inform the next part of our conversation. By the way, I'm not into bonsai trees, so I don't know where that came from. But let's take a look. So, of course, we've got our quote here. We're talking about research, right? Research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. I love that because I think that talks about what we do, right? We're not just listening to people's web activity because we want to be creepy, right? We're not also doing that because we want to suggest that they buy something from the big river store, the big Southern Hemisphere river. We want to actually do this with a purpose. We want to make sure that we can create lasting connections so that we can change people's lives for the better. That's why we're doing all this research and that's why we're learning. It's a great way to really frame what all of us are doing. So, let's talk about some ways that you can learn when you're using Virtuous. So, first off, we do have email split tests. That's a great tool to use to learn, hey, what's better? Right? It's the optometrist approach. Better like this or better like this? Number one or number two? A or B? Same thing with an email split test. You're going to send two versions of the same email. You'll be able to measure click rate and open rate and see which one is more effective and make sure that most of your audience gets the more effective version. Great tool, really kind of bakes all of that in together. Okay? Workflow engagement. Remember, with any workflow, you can actually go into the workflow and look at the engagement metrics and see, are people actually engaging with the content? Who's getting the emails? Who's opening the emails? How many people were sent text messages? All those engagement stats are there for you to see how well that workflow is doing in terms of connecting with folks. And then in terms of gift asks, we talked about gift asks being a way that you can make a suggestion. The gift ask pipeline is a great place to learn how effective those suggestions are. How well are we doing? Are we asking people for the right gift amount? Are we following the right process? Are we making sure that we're maintaining a consistent velocity with managing these asks all the way through to close? The gift ask pipeline is a great way to learn all of that and make sure you factor that in to your future interactions. Now, the last one here, everybody's probably going to go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But it is just a standard report. It is built into Virtuous. And it's the campaign giving report. And I bring it up because I do think it gets overlooked a lot of times because it is just a standard report. It's baked into Virtuous. Everybody's seen it. But that campaign giving report, it's a great way to learn what's really working and what's working well with all of your appeals and your outreach. And so I want to take a look at this, right? There's a lot more complex tools we've talked about, but the campaign giving report, you can even see a sample of it right here. That campaign giving report is a great way to be able to learn what's effective. So let's, oh goodness. I promise I've used Google Slides before. I know how they work, supposedly. But let's take a look. So the campaign giving report, like I said, it's a standard report baked right into the dashboard. You can get to it from your reports drop down. Okay, I've got some of my favorites, and then here's all my standard reports. Now there's two campaign reports right here. You've got campaign giving and campaign summary. Now the difference between the two of them is really the level of detail. Campaign summary is going to give you detail down to the communication level. Campaign giving is going to give you a breakdown to the segment level. And if we're talking about learning which of our suggestions is more effective, that's a great tool to use. And here we can select a campaign. I'm going to use this old training campaign here. We can pick an optional time frame if we want to pull in a bunch of campaigns that were active during that time frame. But here I just want to focus in on one. And if we run that report, that's going to give me a breakdown of giving, and it's going to be grouped by communications. We've got a couple of communications. And then here, this is my fall training mailer. So right here, we can see we sent out that communication and we had 6 different segments. And so for those segments, our messaging was slightly different and our ask was slightly different. So of those messages, hey, which one was most effective? Not only in terms of total dollars raised, because maybe for someone who is a non-donor, I'm going to ask them for a smaller gift, right? My average gift size might be smaller than what I'm asking for from major donors, but also, hey, just in terms of response rate, who responded better to that particular mailer? And then what was the average gift size, right? What was the largest gift I got and what were the total gifts that I got? And if you've built in costs, you can even see what your return on investment was there. We've got some really high ROI numbers over there. But that campaign giving report is such a simple, easy way to get a snapshot and know, okay, we sent out a communication or we're running our campaign. Which things have been effective? Which things have moved the needle? What things are we doing well so we can do more of them? What things are we not doing so well? Maybe we need to reevaluate. Okay, so in terms of learning, again, it can be really easy to blow right past the standard reports and jump into custom reports and queries and all sorts of things, but there's some great, easy ways to just use those off-the-shelf reports to get some intelligence about what it is that you're doing that's working really, really well. Okay. I saw we have a question or two coming in, so I do want to make sure we have time to get to those as well. I'm looking at the clock counting down in front of me here. But I did want to sum up a little bit about what we've kind of talked about here, and then we'll look at a couple of questions. Right, so we've got our responsive framework. Now we've gone through all 4 phases of it. Now I want to talk about some tips for getting started. Okay, these are some things to keep in mind. If you're going to start to do these things, again, I want to talk about, hey, what are things you can take away? What are some practical things you can keep in mind when we talk about doing all this stuff in Virtuous? Now, the first thing would be you can start small. Okay, it's okay. You can't change every single thing you're doing right now, and that's fine. It can feel overwhelming to say, okay, we're going to stop doing everything the way we've been doing it for years. We're going to do this responsive thing. Pick one thing. Do that. Start small, and then go from there. It's the easiest way to do all this. You don't have to change everything overnight. And the other thing is the thing that I've said multiple times throughout this presentation. Just remember, all of this stuff, all this great theory, all these cool words and everything else, it all just comes down to having a conversation. Responsive fundraising is just like having a one-to-one conversation with someone. The key is at scale, right? Because again, we can't do that. I can't call every donor in my database. It would be great if we could. Instead, I'm going to use tools and technology to scale that out, right? And to do things for me, to send the right email at the right time, to listen to what they tell me in their survey response and send them the right suggestion and the right next step. I can set up those tools, let them do it for me, but it should still feel like we're having an organic conversation, just one-on-one, okay? And then the third thing, when in doubt, ask. Don't make decisions for your donors. This is probably one of the biggest things for me, right? If you are truly listening to your donors, don't decide how they want to hear from you or what they want to hear from you. Ask them. How do you want to hear from us? What kind of information do you want to hear from us? I've talked to organizations over the years who say all sorts of things, right? If you pay by check, we only ever send you mail from here on out. We'll never send you email. If you pay by credit card, I'll only send you emails because you're clearly a computer person and I'm never going to send you a piece of direct mail. Neither one of those things is a really great assumption. Someone might give via credit card because they got a fantastic mailer and that had a QR code on it, right? Or they looked at that letter and went, this is fantastic, but I've got Apple Pay on my phone. I'm just going to go ahead and make a donation, right? Whatever it is. So we can't assume that. If you want to know if your donors want to get direct mail from you, ask them, do you want to get mail from us? Hey, what kind of stories do you want to hear from us? What things are you passionate about? We've got 3 or 4 different programs. Which program is it that you are most interested in? Because I'm going to tell you some success stories about that particular program and the difference you've helped us make, right? Don't make those decisions for them. It's a lot of pressure to sit and have an all-day meeting where you kind of figure out, okay, well, what do we want to do? How do I want to connect with these people? What kind of communication should we send them? What do we think it should be? It doesn't matter what you think it should be. Just ask them, hey, what do you want? And then, critically, do that. If they told you that they want email, send them emails. Don't keep sending them direct mail. That's the key. But ask your donors what they want. It makes a huge difference. It really does. Okay, so I got to show the question slide. Come on, it's cute. Got a GIF and everything. But we do have some questions coming in. I wanted to make sure we could address those. I saw one came in about personalized email templates. Right? Can you see the history and the open rates for personalized email templates? So you can't see the open rates because those are not being sent as marketing emails at all. The key with the personalized email templates is, remember, if I click on that personalized email template, again, my browser got all weird on me and squirrely, but if I click on that personalized email template, it's going to open in my Gmail or my Outlook, whatever it is that is my email program. It's just the same as if I opened up Outlook and started typing an email from scratch. Again, the difference is I don't have to make up all the words or copy and paste something or do whatever. A lot of that framework is already there for me, and I can just add a little personal touch. It's not much different, if you want to think about it, than when you're sending out someone's receipt or acknowledgement, right? And that's got a standard message on it, but then it comes to your desk because they're a major donor, so you can add a little personal note and sign it for that person. Well, it's the same thing, but you're doing it via email. I'm getting that email template, it's got all the messaging, and I can add, hey, it was really great to catch up with you at the gala. So glad we got to hang out. Whatever it is. But because they're not being sent as marketing emails, I don't have open rates and click rates or any of that tracking the same way that I would. Okay? Crucially, if I'm sending out those personalized email templates, I do want to make sure that I'm logging those as contact notes. If you have the email sync feature, it'll happen automatically, right? But there is an option when you send that personalized email template to opt to also create a contact note to make sure that you're documenting those interactions. Okay, but I won't have the same email metrics that I have with a marketing email. Okay. Let's see, we had a couple more questions come in here. So I had one, can you have the gift array look at only gifts to a certain project? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? I can't, at least today, right? Again, it's going to be based on some specific contact statistics for my donors, right? I'm looking at their average gift amount, right? Or the Virtuous suggested gift amount, and that looks at someone's entire giving history, not just the giving to one project or program. So I do need to keep that in mind. Now, I would say, right, that might still inform the amount that you want to ask them for in terms of, hey, I'm asking you to support a specific program, but you tend to give gifts like this. So maybe that can still inform the amount, but I can't base it on the amount someone's given to only one project. So it's a little bit different there. Okay. And then I saw another one come in about the choice between the two metrics and how you want to base those suggested amounts, right? Hey, is it better to use the average gift amount or the suggested gift amount? To be honest, some of that's a matter of preference for you, right? And some of it's a matter of looking at the suggested asks for your donors, saying, hey, does this look like it's on point for what we want to ask them for? Now, to the other question we had from Denise, I swear I can read, guys. To the other question we had from Denise, right? Hey, I want to base this on giving to one project. Okay, well, if I'm going to use the suggested ask, that suggested ask might be looking at everything they've given over their lifetime and projecting a much larger gift ask, and maybe that's not going to work for me. But if I were to just look at the average that they give over the years that they've been giving, that might be closer to the mark for me in terms of what I want to ask them to give for one specific project or program. So in that case, the average gift amount might work out a lot better for me. In other cases, right, hey, I really want to make sure that I can upgrade them to a higher giving level today. I want to look at the suggested ask amount and I want to go from there. Fantastic. Again, the best thing to do is to look at your data, look at your records, and see which one is going to fit your needs better. There's a reason why we make them both available. One size does not fit all. So we want to make sure that you guys have those both available at your fingertips so you can send the best communication possible, right? So that as you're listening to your supporters and as you're making those connections with them, you are making the right suggestions. And then of course you can learn. So if you've used the suggested gift amount and you see, oh my gosh, that wasn't quite exactly what we needed, you can learn from that and say, okay, we're going to use average gift amount the next time around and we're going to see if that works better. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the time. We have less than a minute here Oh my gosh, yes, in-kind gifts. That's right. Well, and that depends on how you track those non-cash gifts in Virtuous too, and how the amounts are associated with them. Those might change some of your suggested asks and even your average gift size. So you'd have to look at your processes there. Okay. I think that's all that we had in the questions, and luckily enough, that's all that I had in my slides. We reached the end. I do have my shiny jacket again, in case anybody missed it at the beginning, because that's the most important part of the presentation. We all know. But thank you guys for joining me today here at the technology stage. I'm so excited again to talk about how you can make these real theoretical concepts much more practical. So hopefully you're taking away some things that you can go and do today in Virtuous. All right. Thanks, everybody. And yes, there is a Virtuous Insider today. That's the best way to wrap up RNS. So make sure that you join that as well.